Hello, everybody, and hello, Nate.
Hey, Greg. Hey, everybody on the internet. Welcome once again to another What's This Bird Live for the American Birding Association. We're excited to be back with you
I
again.
am.
3 weeks after our last one. We had a little bit of a delay. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, that was my
Sometimes that
fault.
happens. Yeah. Well, whatever. All's well that ends well because we're here on a Friday afternoon or morning, depending on where you are on the North American continent, to talk a little bit about birds and bird identification, largely drawing from images that have been posted to the ABA's What's This Bird Facebook group, which is your friendly neighborhood bird identification community. And
Yeah.
every once in a while, we get some photos that we like to take a little bit of a closer look at, or we think that illustrate certain identification challenges of the season. I think that's sort of where we're at this
Yeah,
week, and we talk about it. We talk about it because we're birders and we like to talk about birds.
that's
That's
true.
it.
And
That's what we
you
got
and
here.
you can talk about it too. So Nate is watching
Yes.
the comments
Oh, what
on
a segue.
YouTube,
That's professional.
and hey, it's not my first rodeo here. Um, I am watching the comments on Facebook. Nate is watching the comments on YouTube. So if you've got something to say, just want to give a shout out, have a question, we're watching that, and we will do our best to get to you. But we've got a busy show today. I kind of I kind of packed it up a little bit.
Packed it full.
I did.
Yeah, we got a lot of folks saying hi on the YouTube comments. Are excited to have you here. Thank you, R.I. Davia from NYC, Manny from Indianapolis, Kevin from Florida, Scott Hickman from Michigan, Andrew Kambauer from D.C., Scott Barron from Maryland, Jimbo, Mia McPherson, abandoning Facebook, going
Ah,
over to YouTube. That's fine. As long as you find us in one of those places, that's really all
yep.
that matters. Bill Crean, Steve Gollan, Jeff Blanchard, Jimbo. You get points for putting up comments. Evidently, not sure how that works, but yeah, there's little crowns and stuff that people are they're getting ranked in the comments here on YouTube. I don't know what that's all about. Um, you're all equally great to me. Don't let that little crown with the number one
Yep. We
fool
got
you.
John
It's
Anderson
passed
on
between like four
Facebook.
people just in the last 2 seconds.
John Anderson and Len Kopka chiming in on
Hey,
Facebook.
John.
Um, yeah, so as Nate said, once we get done kind of vamping a little bit here, not for very long because, like I
Let the
said,
people get settled. We let the people get settled.
we let people get settled in a little bit. But we've got kind of a little packed show here today. There were some good pictures, some interesting pictures. You know, we try to kind of thread the needle between really new birder stuff and some kind of real tough ones. And
Yeah.
so we kind of
Well,
try
I
to
mean, you're gonna
get everything in
even new
there.
birders
And
encounter some difficult
right,
ideas
right,
from
right.
time to time, and this is a
You know
classic
what?
time
But you
of
know what I
year
mean.
for
You know what I
for
mean.
fan. I know what you're saying. I know
Yeah.
what you're saying. Yeah, this is a great time of year for lots of bird ID conundrums. Shorebirds are still moving through. That's
Yep.
always a toughie. We got our fall warblers, which are
Exactly.
fun. Thank you, Roger Troy Peterson, for ruining generations of birders by calling them confusing fall warblers. When
Now
yeah, they,
you know
there are
something.
there are a
No,
couple
I think
species pairs that can be confusing, but for the most part, they're reasonable. They're
I
reasonably
think
straightforward.
I get the joke and I do agree with it. However, I mean I do have to say that Peterson's idea was absolutely revolutionary.
Yeah,
And
eras,
I mean he
eras.
changed the way we all do this. And
Hmm.
yeah, so but yeah, he did. the
He screwed us
warblers
up.
in, the warblers in particular did
I
screw
give
us
him.
up.
You know what? I'll cut him some slack because I feel like the optical advantages that the modern birder has are so far beyond what Peterson was working with that I
Yeah.
imagine a lot of those warblers did look awfully confusing through those sort of army surplus era binoculars that he was having to deal with in the 50s and 60s. We are spoiled
We
in
are.
terms of optical clarity and opportunities to take photos of birds and kind of linger on some of the field marks that you might not get to see elsewhere. So Peterson was a birder of his time.
He was.
And a skilled one for that time, but we have moved beyond the confusing fall warblers, I think, into
I
only mildly annoying
except
fall
for a
warblers.
couple. Yeah. We got Davina and Nate on Facebook. Hello, you guys.
Hello, hello, hello.
Um, yeah.
Mike,
So
Kay, Tony, Kelly, He says there's no sound on Facebook. I don't know. I'm not. Facebook
Wait.
is a
All right.
mess.
So John, Len, Davina, Nate, can you guys all hear us on Facebook? We got somebody who says that can't. There's no sound on Facebook.
Manny Majoran says he has a problem with ABA community right now. He can't log on. That's a question for Greg.
Yeah,
after
that's a
we're
question
finished
for
here.
Greg. Go to aba.org/contact and just send me an email. I'll and actually if I look,
I can
here,
hear us on Facebook. I just turned the sound on and checked it. Good.
Okay. Yeah. So I will get to you on that.
That's why we
Good.
have options, folks.
Everybody
if
says
Facebook is
everybody
not working
says
on
on
your browser,
Facebook they can hear us. Everybody says they can hear us.
If
on
it's not
Facebook.
working on your browser, just head over to YouTube. And,
Yeah. All right. Thanks, you
and watch
guys.
it there.
Okay. Let's kind of dive right in a little bit because, like I
get to the
said,
business.
we've
Let's get to
got
the
some
business.
stuff to get to. But first, a couple of things. Nate, what's going on with the podcast this week?
Andrew Gutenberg is what's going on with the podcast this week. Andrew Gutenberg, younger bird artist. He's a former Bird of the Year artist. Back when he was a legitimate young birder, now he is a young professional artist in his own right, and he is the art director for the Nat Geo Guide, now in its 8th edition, just came out. Our colleague Ted Floyd is the author. Andrew Gutenberg is the art director. He added like 200 new pieces of art to fit into the existing art of the National Geo Guide, and he talks about how you decide to do that, where you decide to add things, and his own artistic process. Fascinating stuff. Interesting guy, Andrew Gutenberg, friend of the ABA.
Absolutely.
Good
Absolutely.
convo.
Yeah. Also, want to give a shout out to the Urban Birding Festival in Chicago, now in its second year.
This weekend.
There will be a big ABA presence there. So if you're in Chicago in Lincoln Park, it's at the Notabart Nature Museum in Lincoln Park. I will be there. ABA Executive Director Wayne Klockner will be there. Kelly Smith will be there. Michael Redder, Asher Gorbett. So big ABA crew there. So stop in, say hi, check out the festival. It's going to be a really good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our first bird comes from Ohio. And like Nate was saying,
Ohio. Round on the ends, high in the middle.
oh boy. Okay.
No Brack fans in here. All right.
Yeah. Like Nate was saying, a little bit of a theme for this day is this show is fall warblers, because this is the peak of fall warbler time pretty much everywhere, but especially east of the Rockies. And so we're gonna dig into that just a little bit. This is people see a lot of birds that look like this time of year.
Yeah, it's kind of a basic warbler. It's got a lot of yellow on it, which is par for the course. A lot of yellow warblers out there. It's got it looks like a grayish head. It's got a pretty prominent eye ring.
Yep.
It doesn't appear to have any wing bars.
Nope.
And it's kind of got greenish olive green back. Yeah, there's a handful of warblers that kind of have this basic look that are worth talking about here, and I think for people who just for the edification of those involved, this is what we do. Morning warbler, Connecticut warbler, Nashville warbler, McGillivray's warbler can't be completely ruled out. Well, by range, mostly McGillivray's warbler. It also has more eye arcs as opposed to an eye ring. So those are the four of the three in the east. Nashville, Morning, and Connecticut are the ones that we need to talk about for this bird.
Yeah, in the fall, a McGillivray's in this kind of plumage is almost unidentifiable. I mean, it might be done with absolutely perfect photos, and a lot of them, because as we have seen, and you can kind of see here, I mean, if you look at I'll before I get ahead of myself, eye rings eye arcs, man, those things change as birds move, and they move their eyes and they move their heads.
Molting a little bit too. I mean, those are feathers too.
And
that
molting,
need to be molted,
yeah.
So
that can be really tough. But looking at our bird in question, like Nate said, we've got a bird with yellow underparts all the way from tail to throat, or at least upper breast, um, and greenish on the back, some gray on the head, and a bold eye ring.
Big ol' eye ring.
Yeah. So what do you see in here? What do you? How are we going to get this bird identified?
Yeah, so I think the one we can kind of rule out right off the bat is Connecticut. Connecticut is a super unique warbler. They like to stay close to the ground. That's not to say they won't hop up on
Yep.
branches like this, but they do tend to like to stay both feet kind of equally on the ground.
Yep.
It's a very unique shape. It's got a really long, like it feels like it's got a relatively short tail, but it's got these super long undertail coverts which stretch almost to the tip of the tail. It's a
Yeah.
really weird kind of lanky, long shape, and the coloration is sort of unique as well. I think we can pretty clearly see on this mystery bird, the hood is definitely gray, the back is definitely green, and that's even with a little bit of color issues with the kind of the
Yeah.
brightness of the photo. But for the most part, Connecticut warbler is usually not super green or super gray. It's kind of a brown all over, and it's kind of the color on the back and the color on the head can be very much closer, and there isn't as much of a very well-defined, distinct
Yeah.
line between the head, the hood, and the back. And so I think Connecticut, for those reasons, Connecticut warbler can be ruled out pretty much. Also, it's the color of the feet. I'm looking at the
Well,
feet
I was
here.
just going to say.
Um,
So before we get to that, I
Pink
was
feet,
just going to
right?
mention what you
Yeah.
were talking about. The shape of the bird. Connecticut
Hmm.
warblers always remind me of thrushes. They seem like
Yeah,
little
very much so.
thrushes, more
They are little
more
thrushes.
than
Yeah.
what we think of as warblers flitting around in the trees chasing small
Hmm.
insects.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So
They
we
have a
look.
big bill too, and this
They
bird
do
does
have a
not have a
big
big
bill.
bill.
And Nate, you just alluded to the leg color, the feet color. Connecticut warbler has big, strong pink feet for walking on the ground.
And
And
walking too. They don't hop. They walk,
yeah,
which is
they
sort of
walk.
unique. The only other warbler that does that is ovenbird.
Ovenbird.
Hmm.
Well, and water thrushes.
Oh
Um,
yeah, forget the white thrushes.
yeah.
But they're very different. So is
You
ovenbird
know,
for that matter.
Nashville and Morning, they can be difficult.
Hmm.
But they're really they're different. And they're different enough that once you get familiar with them, it's not that difficult to tell them apart. But it takes some familiarity because the color pattern is so similar.
Hmm.
And as we can see, morning warblers in the fall, especially first year birds like that, they can have pretty bold eye arcs, eye ring, white around the eye. It's quite variable. But one thing that Nashville has that is always kind of it always kind of sticks out to me is they're almost ridiculously thin little black toothpick legs, and
Hmm.
sometimes they have like little yellow feet, sometimes not. Um, but they have these really delicate, thin, little spindly toothpick legs, and it just gives them a very different impression. Um, they also have longer wings. They have longer primaries than Morning. Morning tends to have the tertials come pretty close to the wingtips and show more tail. They don't look as compact
Hmm.
as Nashville.
Yeah,
Um,
Nashville's a very compact and round warbler.
and
Small legs, as you say, small bill too.
and
It's got a
a
little
small,
tiny needle bill. Yeah.
very sharp. Like you don't see any roundness to it at all. If you look at these
Hmm.
three, you can see the Connecticut again has an almost little thrush-like bill. Um,
Hmm.
Morning is in kind of in between, and the
Hmm.
Nashville has like a little pin needle bill. So yeah, all of that adds up to this bird being a Nashville warbler.
I agree. And one of the things that is also very distinctive for a Nashville warbler, and that you can't really see in this photo, but something to look for just generally is like they have this really unique pattern on the underside where it's the breast and the belly are kind of bright yellow, and the undertail coverts are bright yellow. But in kind of in between them, they've got kind of this white spot right where the feet
Yeah,
kind of meet the body, and it's like yellow, white, yellow. And if you're looking at a Nashville warbler directly up above you, that's the sort of thing that you see a lot. But Nashville warbler will come down. They'll come down low. This bird in the picture looks like it's kind of working, and maybe looks like there's some pokeberry behind it,
looks like pokeweed. Yeah,
which is a great fall food source for a lot of migrating birds. They like that kind of low brambly goldenrod pokeweed kind of habitat stuff. Morning warbler will be in that sometimes too, but Connecticut
Yeah.
warbler, they like woods or I don't know, that at least when I've seen them in the fall, brushy stuff like sedges almost.
They
They're
like
weird. They're
brushy
weirdos.
stuff, but they also early in the morning. Well, any time of day, but of course early in the morning when there isn't a lot of traffic in city parks, at least where I live,
Hmm.
they come walking out on the paths.
Yeah, that's weird.
They like oven birds. They'll come walking out. I saw this incredible picture once from Grant Park in downtown Chicago of a mulched path, and the path had been recently mulched, so there was all kinds of
Hmm.
stuff in there, and there were 5 Connecticut warblers in the picture down the path, just all
I feel
in
like
various places.
the Chicago lakefront is about the one place in the world where you can see that sort of thing. They do that in Central Park sometimes too.
Yeah,
I've seen photos of them doing that, but yeah, odd birds for such a bird that is so
yeah.
difficult to find almost any other time of the year. Like they can be a tough one. One of the
I will
rarest
bet
fall
that
warblers for sure around
I
where I
will
live.
bet that some of the field trips for the Chicago Birding Festival this weekend, if not already today, because there are some trips out today, I'll bet they're getting a Connecticut
We're
warbler
gonna
or
get a
two on the
Connecticut warbler.
lakefront.
Tis the season.
Yeah, so our bird there is a Nashville warbler, common,
Yep, Nashville
actually
warbler.
pretty much across the ABA area, up into Canada,
Hmm.
and pretty common migrant, and an
Yeah, it's
interesting
an
bird
interesting
with
bird.
some
It's one of those birds that has an eastern and western population that in the
yeah,
past have been considered possibly cryptic species.
yep,
Was a Calaveras warbler for the western
mm-hmm,
birds. Um, yeah, but it's a pretty common fall migrant, at least where I am. More common in the fall than the spring for sure. Across the southeast where I live.
yeah. Now we're going to go to Alaska. And this one comes from the What's This Bird group on ABA Community. So that's our social media experience and member directory for ABA members. If you are an ABA member, just go to aba.org/community. Um, yeah, check it out. I believe this is up near Anchorage, someplace.
Makes sense. That's where most of the people are in Alaska.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's not like down by Juneau or something like that, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
this was up near Anchorage somewhere. Flying
I
bird
think
over
it's
water.
yeah, it's worth breaking this down kind of broadly to start
Yeah,
because in the Pacific Northwest, you get pelagic birds pretty close to shore, and
sure.
things like shearwaters, things like
Short-tailed
fulmars
shearwater. Yeah,
can show up within sight of shore and can be seen by people. I think fulmar is a bird that you can see in Alaska from shore, in a lot of places. But it does not look like a fulmar to me, though.
no.
It could be forgiven for thinking that. Fulmar is a very, very compact, kind of big-headed, big-billed
Yep.
seabird, whereas this looks like a little more dainty, a little more narrow in the wing,
Mm-hmm.
a little longer wings for sure than Fulmar, which is pretty short-winged as for a pelagic bird, and has a big old bill. This one
Yeah.
definitely does not have that. I think this is going to be one of those young gulls, Greg,
Yeah.
and for that reason, I will let you take the lead on this guy.
um, yeah, I would say, Nate, you are correct. It is a gull. It's not a shearwater or anything like that. The pattern on the back on the
Too much
wings,
pattern.
pretty much.
Too much
There's too
pattern.
much. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's not a Jaeger for the same reason. We can see the underside of the primaries on one side and a
Mhm.
little bit of the upper side on the other. But again, that pattern with sort of the dark secondaries and that just yells young gull.
Yells
Gull
young
in its
gull.
first
Yep.
gull in its first year.
Hmm.
Um, and up in that part of the world, there's a few. So let's take a look at them. But I think we can rule a couple of them out right away. Uh, so on the left there, I've got an American herring gull in first cycle plumage, very fresh. I think this photo is a bit blown out.
Hmm.
It looks almost whitish or gray. I don't believe it is. I think it's a
I
little
agree. I
browner
agree.
and you kind of have to interpolate a little bit when the photo is blown out like that with low light. So you can see in the shadows on the bird's back a little more truthful idea of what this bird's plumage is like. But, Nate, as you said, this bird has a rather small bill, and American herring gull and the other large white-headed gulls like glaucous-winged, which can be quite dark in first cycle plumage, I think we can rule those out just on the size of the bill and the overall structure of the bird. Those are big, heavy birds.
Yeah, the body looks deeper, the body looks bigger, and even though the wings may be in, absolute terms longer than the wings of a ring-billed gull or short-billed gull, they don't appear that way because the rest of the bird is so much bigger. I agree with you, Greg. This is one of the smaller ones.
Yeah, and both California and California and ring-billed gull are not. Those would be good birds in coastal Alaska, especially the further north you go. Like I said just a minute ago, you can see the kind of dainty bill and big black eye on this bird, which kind of rules out California gull. Ring-billed and short-billed. That is a big conundrum in places where they both occur. And places where you want to find one where they don't. And short-billed is, how do I describe it? It's similar, but it's muted. And it's got this, in that fresh first cycle plumage, it's got this kind of cool brown, like clay, almost clay colored, like river clay, you know what I'm saying? Whereas a first cycle ring-billed gull, something that I think pretty much most of us are familiar with.
Seen a lot of those.
They
Classic
have a
parking
really
lot gull.
Exactly. They have a really bold upper wing pattern. And the tail can be anything from all dark to almost all white with a fairly narrow terminal band. But the rump usually appears white, even when it's pretty heavily barred. Whereas short-billed gull tends to have a rump that's very heavily barred and doesn't really jump out as being white in the way that a ring-billed gull does. And I think if you put that all together, and especially people who are familiar with short-billed gull, formerly called mew gull, that the face is really all you need to see with that big eye and the little dainty bill.
Yeah.
It really, the other things that kind of lean in there are the all dark tail, and the lack of like a really bright white rump, or at least whiter than that. So I feel very good calling this a short-billed gull. And John Anderson, who lives out in the West Coast, agrees.
Yep. I'd agree. Having been to Alaska briefly one time, I spent a couple days in the Anchorage area. Short-billed gull is pretty common there. As common as ring-billed gull is where I live. They loiter in parking lots. They hang out wherever there's water. They and glaucous-winged gulls are like the two main gull species in wherever you go, flying all over the place in the Anchorage area. So yeah, that's a good one. Short-billed gull. Sarah Coffey asks, are short-billed gull West Coast only?
Yes.
I wouldn't say they're West Coast. They're definitely western third of the. Are they West Coast, Greg? They come inland a fair bit.
They come inland a little bit. It really depends on what you mean by that. Let's just take a quick look at what Sibley has to say, because why remember everything when you can look it up? And so short-billed gull, it goes inland up in the Northwest Territories, Yukon, northern British Columbia, and Alaska. In the summertime, it breeds, but in the winter, anything other than breeding, it's a coastal, it's a coastal species. Yeah. And
but I know we look for them. I know we look for them out here. Like they show up from time to time.
They do.
in on the East Coast every once in a while. They're pretty uncommon. Honestly, where I live in North Carolina, we have the same number of short-billed gull records as we do common gull records, which is they were formerly
Yeah,
conspecific. Common gull being the old world, essentially version
right.
of short-billed gull. So we have the same number of both in the state, which is about half a dozen each.
Yeah, I mean it's that whole group is interesting. You've got common gull going from, well, basically Newfoundland all the way
Yeah, they're
across
regular up there. Yeah.
all the way across to Siberia and the
Hmm.
Kamchatka, where there is a subspecies that may get split called Kamchatka gull,
Yeah.
which tends to look a little bit more like ring-billed gull. And then when you get over to this side of the Pacific, we have the short-billed gull, which
Formerly called
it,
Mughal.
yeah, which is really, I think, the most
Still in
distinctive
some
of the
defiant
three.
corners of the
Yeah,
ABA area.
but as Nate was alluding to, in places where you don't regularly see short-billed gulls, we look for them. And so I thought we'd talk just a moment
Yeah,
about
gulls wander.
how to tell subadult short-billed from subadult ring-billed, because that you get a short-billed gull in a flock of ring-bills, and it can really just hide in there, and it can be tough. Um, Overall, if you compare the three birds on the left to the three birds on the right, pay attention to two things in particular. One, the head. You look at how kind of dainty and cute the head is.
Yeah, like a
It,
pigeon
it
almost.
gives, yeah, it has a real pigeon-headed look to it. Um, Obviously, a short bill. In gulls, the bills are all very they're quite variable depending on sex and age and just normal variation within individuals, among individuals, I should say. Um, but short-billed gull, uh, in that sort of what we would call first cycle plumage, um, always tends to be browner, softer. If you look at the mantle, the back feathers, and the wing feathers, it kind of looks like scales of a large fish, like a tarpon or something.
Hmm.
Um, it's smooth and kind of even. Um, Compare that to a ring-billed gull, and the pattern on the back and especially the wing panel of a ring-billed gull is very complex. If we're going to compare scales to scales, it's like I said, comparing a big fish to a pineapple. Pineapples have those real complex scales on them that have points and divots and stuff, and that's what you've got with ring-billed gull. And if you can get a good look at the wing pattern, the wing panel, you'll notice that all of the feathers have like a pointed tip and a little extra white on the fringe, giving it that even uneven look, whereas short-billed gull really doesn't. Um, when we get to second year, they can be really confusing. That bird on the right, that ring-billed gull on the lower right, was a bird that in 2006 or so um, caused me to write a couple essays about how hard birding can be. Because, yeah, I mean, look at how similar the color and pattern, the color of the bill, the color of the legs, that weird bluish green. Um, and again, earlier on, I forget which, might have been the Nat Geo guide or one, I forget which one it was, but really pointed out that blue green color being something to look for on mew gulls at the time, now short-billed gulls. And but ring-billed gulls can have that in their second winter as well, and
Hmm.
they can be very confusing. Ring-billed gulls, we think of short-billed gulls as being a little bit daintier and longer wing, but boy, I
Some
have
of those little
seen
females. Yeah.
I have seen some ring-billed gulls that are just perfect body shape and even almost bill size,
Mm.
um, for a short-billed gull. But notice how the eyes, even with the dark eyes, which is something you look for on short-billed gull, ring-billed gull in adult plumage has, or as an adult, has yellow eyes and a brighter yellow bill. Um, but the eyes of the short-billed gull, maybe it's the dark feathering in the front a little bit, and it's just the size. It just has this bigger-eyed kind of neotenic doe-like look about it, which a ring-billed gull just doesn't usually, just doesn't have. So it's subtle, and you got to get a good look at them. But with practice and ring-billed gull was, I wrote another essay about that, about how studying the common birds, studying ring-billed gulls, the only way you're going to find a mew gull or a short-billed or anything else like that is to
look at a lot of ring-billed gulls.
Study the common birds. Yep. And
Sarah Coffee asks, is leg color a field mark? I don't think it is with these two.
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really.
Both are kind of yellowish olive, yellowy green legs.
It depends. I mean, when they're in first cycle, they're both kind of pinkish, kind of pinkish putty color. In that second year, the bare parts, the bill and the legs, can be this weird bluish green. And to make it even more confusing, California gull does the same thing. And California gull, before it gets the green legs, it gets that kind of bluish, kind of I don't even know what to call that color, but it's kind of a blue green. It's kind
like
of
a turquoise. Yeah.
But it's real dull. It's like a anyway. But yeah. So yes, if you are looking for short-billed gulls in places where they're not normally found, just takes a little bit of practice, but they're out there to be found. Now this one, we're going to California, and this is interesting.
It is. I certainly get the impression of a relatively small bird, kind of a interesting pattern on the back and on the wings and on the undertail. I think we should probably start with birds that cling to the sides of trees, of which there are a handful of birds that regularly do that. Woodpeckers, for one, which I think we can pretty easily rule out based on the tail and the feet on this bird. It's not sitting like a woodpecker, which are very distinctive.
No.
Even non-birders know how a woodpecker sits on a tree. Nuthatch is the other one. Our nuthatches are 4 species of nuthatches in the ABA area. Generally not patterned on the back. They're pretty plain, pretty gray on the back. Not a lot of pattern, but they will kind of sit like this sometimes. Oftentimes very short tail on nuthatches as well. Creeper, brown creeper is the other one. Black and white warbler is the other one. Chickadees and titmice will cling from time to time, but they don't regularly do it.
No.
But I think if we're looking at birds like this, this bird, we're thinking nuthatch, we're thinking brown creeper, we're thinking black and white warbler.
Yeah, and
you got another one?
Ted pointed out to me, and this is you're gonna have a little aha moment like I did when something that we know, you just don't think of it until you see it. Yellow-throated warbler.
Oh yeah, they do that.
Bird with a gray back and bold wing bars and patterning on the wings and creeping up the side. Let's take a look at what some of the
I got him. I nailed him. Folks don't know that I had an appointment this morning that got me in my seat for this what's this bird, like literally 5 minutes before we were scheduled to start, and I didn't even look at the birds. I'm sort of winging it to a greater extent than I usually am this time, but I'm glad. That looks like Greg and I are on the same page here.
So one of the things that I've pointed out here several times, and this is one of the reasons I picked this bird, is the middle picture on the left. Now you'll notice that I added a third, so that the person who posted this had 3 pictures. I purposely left one off because the thing that really jumped out to me were 2 things. One, the bold streaking on the back, but the modeling, the pattern on the undertail coverts. And as I've said quite a few times, there are very few passerines in the ABA area that have pattern on the undertail coverts, and most of them are finches. And
finches, not birds that typically cling to the sides of trees. Not to say they won't or can't, but I don't know that I've ever seen a finch clinging to the sides.
I have seen all kinds of things clinging to the sides of trees when trying to get at sapsucker wells.
Yeah, there you go.
But it's really brief, and it wouldn't.
They do not look comfortable.
it would not be enough to fool you if you watch the bird for more than a few seconds. Whereas
Yeah.
pretty much all the birds here, except for one, regularly do what this bird is doing, clinging to the side of trees. Now, one of the small black and white, gray and white, boldly patterned birds is black-throated gray warbler. And we can rule that out right away because of the mottled undertail coverts. So we know it's not that. White-breasted nuthatch has mottled undertail coverts, but they're rufous. And it has a lot of white in the tail as well, but it's got really unique rufous kind of mottling on the undertail coverts. Kind of like it's trying to be a red-breasted nuthatch and didn't quite make it. And
no pattern on the back too.
And no pattern on the back.
Certainly not black and white stripes.
No.
On the mantle.
Brown creeper has a lot of similarities in pattern with this bird. It's got a boldly streaked back, very boldly patterned wings. But boy, the structure is all off. I mean, there is except for a vague hint of similar pattern, nothing about this bird says creeper.
Yeah, they like to stay directly straight up, bill up on those trunks. They do not turn to the side perpendicular to the trunk very often at all.
Yeah. So that leaves us with black and white warbler, and which this bird is. And I would point out that that's a good bird in coastal California. I
was gonna say.
I believe it's regular. Like they get a few every year, but that's a good bird in California. So another minor case of what's this bird does it again.
Yeah,
but that's,
I think black and white is probably one of the more common eastern warbler vagrants this time, especially this time of year on the West Coast. But none of them are birds that you're actively looking for every time you go out. And if you run into one, there's a California birder, I would imagine that would be a pretty exciting day, even if it is semi-regular vagrant.
Yeah. Len Kopka on Facebook points out worm-eating warbler also has mottled undertail coverts, but all the other field marks here rule that out. And yes, that is correct. Excuse me. That is a really good field mark for worm-eating warbler, which we tend to think of being like low down in the underbrush, but no, they get up high, and when you see them overhead, they just look very plain underneath, except for the mottled undertail covert. So that's a really good field mark for that species.
Yeah, they're really weirdly shaped too. Relatively short tail, big bill.
They are. Big bill.
They're kind of weird shaped warblers for sure. Kind of like a Swainson's warbler.
But if you happen to be in the same, in a place where there's both Swainsons and worm eating and they're not singing, and they're up in the trees above you, that's a good way to tell them apart.
Where is this magical place where Swainsons and worm eating warblers are cavorting
Southern
in the trees
Illinois.
above me?
Southern Illinois,
above
Missouri,
you?
Kentucky. Huh? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Swainson's warbler is pretty uncommon in Missouri.
Yeah, I mean they're uncommon, but they do get they'll go 20 feet up in a tree. All right, we're gonna stick with little birds, little fall birds. I think we gave it away that we're gonna talk a lot about warblers, so let's just cut to the chase.
It's the time of year. We are reaching the peak of southbound passerine migration across most of the ABA area, and there's a lot of these birds around. A lot of people asking about them. It's one of the more common things we see this time of year in what's this bird, and so it's always nice to spend a little time on them. As
I said earlier, we are right now at the peak of warbler migration, and city parks and forest preserves all across the ABA area, but especially east of the Rockies right now, there are a lot of birds that look like these two, hopping around in the bushes, in the trees overhead, and there's a good half dozen of species that look like these, look similar, little kind of greenish grayish, maybe streaked, maybe not, wing bars. Similar, but as Nate said earlier, not really once you get comfortable.
Yeah, it's these first year birds, of which they make up at least half of the southbound warblers this time of year.
Yeah.
that are always causing the troubles. Adult birds, generally speaking, look like just shadows of their spring selves. They look a lot like the patterns are there. A lot of the times, there's a few exceptions, but for the most part, the pattern is there. The birds just look kind of faded and washed out versions of those spring birds. But these first year birds, the patterns are there if you know where to look for them and how to look for them.
Yeah.
But they are frequently pretty obscured. And these are two that are always giving people trouble. I think it's safe to say we've got two warblers here.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to go with first, Greg?
You know what?
Should
I
we
want
do
to
the
go with
Chicago bird.
I want to go with all of them.
All of them.
Because I think what we should do here is look at like all of the 5 or 6 that kind of look like this, and just kind of run through all of them.
Okay.
So
those are the ones.
here they are for the most part. There may be a couple others that might slip in
wing
there.
bars and streaks.
Wing bars, greenish,
various
and
amounts.
streaks to
Another one I
various
might
extent.
throw in there is a which you didn't put, but you could have easily done, is like a first fall female Blackburnian as well, which can show kind of streaky. It can look a lot like the cerulean warbler.
Yeah, and you're right. Cerulean and Blackburnian
that is
be,
getting a little bit more out there. If we're thinking of these birds on a spectrum of like streakiness and wing barriness. It's a little bit further out there towards the more identifiable side for sure.
Precisely, and that's where I kind of tried to draw the line here.
Yeah,
is what Blackburnian
there is no line to draw. It's all a spectrum, Greg.
Blackburnian is usually more easily identifiable than these 5.
You usually have kind of a well-defined cheek patch and a little bit of orangey apricot on the throat. Even the palest females.
And a pretty noticeable broad supercilium, lying over the eyebrow.
Big old wing bar.
And big old wing bars and big old stripes on the back. The braces are the braces on a Blackburnian are like the slam dunk field mark. If you can see its back,
if you can see
boom.
it. Yep.
That is unique to that bird. So let's look at the bird on the top left of the 2 inset photos.
So you wanted to do all of them. Here we are. Now we're picking and choosing. All right.
Well, we're gonna use these 2 against the 5.
Okay. So things that I'm looking at on that bird that stand out to me are the feet, kind of bright orange feet. I'm looking at the wing bars. They're not overly strong. It's got a little bit of streaking on the breast, like there is definitely some pattern on that breast. Those are the things that stand out to me for the most part. The bright yellow feet is sort of the slam dunk for this bird, but if we're talking about the pattern on the breast, pine warbler tends to be like really, really smudgy and kind of non-distinct on there, and it kind of all washes together. It's not quite as fine as this one. Cape May warbler doesn't show a lot of color on the breast, but it does have the stripes, like a lot of times really, really dark stripes. Bay-breasted warbler has the wash, but it doesn't always have the stripes. So we're kind of in the middle of those, which to me, along with the feet, which is the feet is the main thing here. But of course, we don't want to focus on a single field mark, even though when that single field mark is extremely helpful in this case. It's a Blackpoll warbler.
Yes, and if I think getting back to what you were saying about Peterson, Peterson kind of painted literally and figuratively Blackpoll and bay-breasted
with paints and words.
With paints and words, painted them as being very difficult to tell apart in the fall. And
they can be, but I think most of them, there are definitely some of those gray area birds that you encounter every once in a while, but for the most part I think you can be pretty confident, sort of in the way that Coopers and Sharpshinned are. 90% of them you can identify, but there's always going to be those birds, even the most skilled birder, there's going to be those birds that you're never quite sure about.
There's exactly. But speaking in broader terms, Blackpoll, starting from bill and heading backwards, it tends to have a smaller bill than bay-breasted. Bay-breasted kind of has a uniquely large bill for a warbler of this type, meaning not a Swainson's or a worm-eating or something like that. It tends to be it tends to have a different color green on the back and the head, um, closer to a Tennessee warbler, which
Mm.
I didn't include here because they really don't ever have streaking of any kind.
Or
Um,
wing bars. Yeah.
and well, in the fall they can have wing bars, but they're more like suggestive. They're not bold like all of these. And
Hints of a wing bar.
yeah, hint of a wing bar, but it's got that kind of unique greenish color, and bay-breasted kind of gets into that territory. And usually, if you look at the bay-breasted here in the lower right, you can see it's got a hint of that bay color, that peach, kind of a peach blush to the underparts. Um, and then bright white undertail coverts, very bold wing bars. That's something.
Oh, the wing bars are always like immaculate on a
Yes,
bay-breasted warbler this time of year, and that always stands out to me as a very good field mark for that species.
absolutely,
If you're not sure. In the same way that the orange feet are for a black bull.
And then, as Nate said, the orange feet, the dark legs with orange feet on a black pole, if you can see it, and sometimes they don't have it, but usually they do. That's a really good field mark. All right, so now the bird on the bottom.
Dark bill, all over dark bill.
Yep.
Not much on the face, maybe a little bit of a dark lore, but more or less pretty plain. Lot of streaking, lot of dark, dense streaking on that bird.
Yep.
That when I see the scientific name for Cape May warbler is Setophaga tigrina, which basically translates to tiger warbler, which always struck me as a much better name than Cape May warbler, because that dense dark streaking is such a good field mark for that bird, in the fall especially, and even these sort of first year females, which are the least marked of these birds, almost always show a lot of streaking. And you get the adult birds, the adult females, and especially the adult males, where you can even see the orange. They retain a lot of the orange in the breast. But that dark streaking is just such a great field mark all across the front of the bird. A lot of times birds will have dark streaking on the sides of the breast and down onto the flanks, but Cape May is all across the front. It's a real compact little bird, short tail, short little bill, and it's also oftentimes got quite a lot of yellow in the rump. Not as much as a yellow-rumped warbler, which will come later in the fall, but a little bit, and frequently more than a lot of the other birds that you'll see this time of year.
And the rump tends to stand out against the kind of grayish, maybe grayish-greenish back. The rump tends to be a little brighter, kind of getting close to the color of a Tennessee or a bay-breasted's head.
It's bright. It's the brightest part of the younger birds. It's the brightest part of that bird.
And a couple other subtle things that may be hard to notice in the field, but are pretty. If you get like a decent picture like this one that we have here, Cape May warbler has a rather unique shaped bill. It's got a little decurved. It's got a little curve to it. And they like to pick things out of clusters of pine needles.
Yeah, they're in pine trees a lot this time of year.
And so if you look at the shape of the bills, I mean, especially compared to the big pine warbler up there with that big of all these birds, massive bill, but even the cerulean, it's got kind of a dainty, slightly decurved bill. And something you'll notice on both the bird in the comp and the bird on the left there, lower left in the inset, and it's super duper subtle, but once you get familiar with it, you know where to look for it, is they always have like a little pale patch right on the upper neck behind the ear. And it can be gray, it can be yellow, it can be just paler than whatever color it is, because, when they molt, they kind of change colors a little bit. But that little pale patch is always there in some fashion. And it's subtle, but it's there.
Yeah, sometimes you'll get like yellow-rumped warblers and pine warblers, because Cape May warbler, at least where I live, tends to be a later migrant. So they'll start coming in late September, but they really come through in the biggest numbers in early October and mid-October. So you're starting to get yellow-rumped warblers in there as well, and they can be very streaky and dense as well. But they don't have that patch on the side, as you say, Greg. It's kind of unique, and the bill is actually much larger on a yellow-rumped warbler. Most yellow-rumped warblers, even the kind of plain young ones. But just sort of my defining idea of a Cape May warbler this time of year is, down here we have these loblolly pines that are 60, 70 feet high, and you're walking underneath them and you look up and you see this bird in there, and it's just like dense streaking, little tiny compact bird with just streaking all over the front.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, Cape May, easy. There you go. Even 70
Yeah,
feet up in the air.
And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody looked up and thought pine siskin, because it's up there in
Yes,
pine trees
you're right.
and
And
very
they can be
heavily
very
streaked.
compact as well. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You're right.
And then the other
Different
two,
noises though. Pine siskins do not
yeah.
shut up, and they're always
They
making
do not
noises
shut
around.
up. They do not shut up. And then quickly the other two, cerulean and pine. Cerulean is kind of a unique bird. It's kind of hefty. Yes, that is an Urban Birding Festival hat, Matthew. If you were not here earlier, we gave a shout out to the festival. I will be at the Urban Birding Festival tomorrow, along with a bunch of our ABA crew at the Peggy Notebart Museum. A little shout out there from Facebook. But cerulean is kind of a uniquely shaped bird. It's got some heft to it. It's not a little dainty warbler like Cape May. It's kind of thick. It's got a short tail,
big head, kind of a bull neck almost.
Big head, long wings, and a unique color. It's always got that. The males are gorgeous in breeding plumage with that unique cerulean color.
Carolina
but
blue.
the females in young birds always have a little bit of that tinged into the green and gray. And you can it's always there, usually on the crown, but sometimes on the head, on
it's
the
like
scapulars.
a sea green or an aquamarine.
Yeah, sea green. If it was a candle, it would be called sea foam or something like that. And then of course the streaking on the sides, which has neat streaking on the sides, which is one of the reasons why they're confused with Blackburnian, is because they've got those bold wing bars. They've got that neat streaking on the sides, on the flanks. And then that,
and they've almost got like some pale yellow on the throat, which sometimes like really, really pale female Blackburnian warblers can show. Like, even in fall, an adult male Blackburnian is going to be pretty orange. Not as bright orange and vibrant orange as they are in the spring, but there's going to be a lot of orange there. But they get paler as we get close to the other end of the spectrum, and the first year females are the palest of all. But they do kind of have that yellowish can be very similar. Yeah. Whenever I've seen a cerulean warbler in the spring, my first thought was always, is this Blackburnian? Oh wait, it's not. Or cerulean warbler in the fall. Excuse me.
Cerulean warbler in the fall, right? And I picked this cerulean warbler because it has a very indistinct supercilium eyebrow. But sometimes they can be almost as bold as a Blackburnian, and they can be tough. But again, once you get familiar with them, if you can see the back, like I said with Blackburnian, if you can see the back, it's done.
Unfortunately, they don't show the back very much.
Right. If they're up in the trees, it can be difficult.
Yeah.
And then lastly, our favorite warbler that looks like everything and nothing, pine warbler.
Pine warbler. If it's not anything else, it's a pine warbler.
Exactly.
Rule of thumb.
Extremely variable. They can be anything from yellow greenish like this one to just all over gray.
Nothing like a Cape May. Yeah.
Nothing like a Cape May. They have very bold wing bars, usually. Sometimes not so bold, but usually they do. It's a hefty,
sometimes they look like
bird.
bay-breasted warblers. Sometimes they have that kind of beigey color that the bay-breasted warblers have. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hefty, large-billed, long-tailed bird. But once like Nate said, if you can't fit it anywhere else, it's almost surely a pine warbler. So there we have those birds.
There you go.
Okay.
We got one more. Excuse me.
We got one more, and I really like this photo because for people who know this bird, it's instantly identifiable, even though we can barely see anything on it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those birds that has unique coloration, unique pattern, kind of unique form, and like once you know what it is, you'll never forget it. Once you see it, you'll never forget it.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about how confusing so-called confusing fall warblers do mostly look like kind of shades of their spring selves. Most of the patterns are there. The colors just aren't quite as bright. This one's completely different. This one is the one. This and Blackpoll are the two that change the most in the
Yes.
spring. And isn't it funny how those are the ones that cause most problems? But yeah, some things to look at on this bird. Boy, that green is bright, and
Bright.
that is an accurate green on the back because the green on the leaves around it looks
Yep.
pretty good to me. Like there isn't a lot of color aberration there. The wing bars, look, it's got two big old wing bars, but they aren't white; they're yellow,
The kind of
and
yellowish.
then it's mostly gray everywhere else. Like can't see the
Well,
head,
we've
can't
got
see the bill, can't see the
well,
feet.
we can see
Um,
a little bit. We
you can
can
see
see
the
a
side
little
of the
bit
head
here
maybe a
on the
little bit.
side of the
Yeah.
neck, which is definitely gray compared to the undertail coverts, which are
Which are
white.
Yeah.
And yeah, Daphne and Rose got it.
We have a lot
As
of
you were
correct
talking about
answers.
bay-breasted and chestnut-sided, those are really the only two that it could be,
Hmm.
with those big, bold wing bars and all of that. But the chestnut-sided warbler with that combination of that sort of um, perfect 18% Kodak gray face and the bold eye ring
Yeah.
and that bright green head and back. And they usually cock their tail a little bit, and like the bird in the inset
Yeah.
photo is.
Drops its wings, cocks its
Um,
tail. Yep.
yeah,
Yep. Classic
yeah,
chestnut-sided warbler posture.
and the way that the gray face really um, stands out in contrast to the bright white undertail coverts. Really, that's I said once you get to know that bird, and so
Yeah.
what the heck are the worm-eating warbler and Lincoln sparrow doing down there?
It's a great question, Greg. I would wager that you put them on there because of that color on the back can look a little bit like the color of a worm-eating warbler and the kind of
I was
unique buffy ochre greenish buff of a Lincoln sparrow, which is also kind of a very unique color for a bird.
I was sort of my thinking here is that worm-eating warbler and Lincoln sparrow are two species that we've talked about in the past as
Mm.
having, like chestnut-sided, very unique color. It's like once you
Mm.
get
Hmm.
a look at that buffy ochre
Oh, I
color
see.
of a
Yeah.
worm-eating warbler, or that sort of um, uh, how would you describe it?
I don't
Ochre,
know. It's a khaki almost, but it's not. It's more
ochre.
gray.
Yeah.
It's
And the Lincoln
an interesting
sparrow
color. Yeah.
Lincoln Sparrow likewise has a very unique base color that it's gray brown, but it's not
Hmm.
really. And
It's not
let's,
like any other sparrow. That's for
I'm
sure.
sure Ted in his book has come up with a great way
Oh,
to
that's a question
describe
for
that.
Andrew Gutenberg,
Or
honestly.
Andrew Gutenberg. Yeah, you should have asked him that yesterday.
Yeah. What
Um,
color is a Lincoln
but
sparrow?
let's see what Sibley has to say about the color of Lincoln Sparrow. See what he calls it. Um, where is it? Oh, there it is. Ba-ba-da-ba-da. He just says grayish color. Note the grayish color.
Ted
But
calls it yellow buff.
yeah, it's a unique color, and there are a few small
Oh, it's got
passerines
some green
like
in there
that,
too.
like chestnut-sided warbler, worm-eating warbler, and Lincoln sparrow. That once you get a feel for that color, you just
Yeah, it
need
doesn't
a
matter.
second.
You can
And
see a tiny little
yep,
square centimeter of it, and you know what it is. Yeah.
yep. So hey, look at that! We did it again.
We did it, folks. If anyone has any questions, now's the time to throw them out
Yeah,
there.
we
I've got
got
a
a
little bit
minute
of
or
time
two
before I
here.
have to go get my daughter at school. Um, but yeah, it's thanks if you enjoy these What's This Bird, or if you join the free online resources that the ABA provides, please consider joining the ABA. We are a membership organization. It is one of the best ways to support this organization is to become a member. You get access to a lot of our fantastic magazines like Birding Magazine, North American Birds. You get access to all of our online resources like ABA Community. We've talked a little bit about that today, and of
Boy,
course,
look at all the
North
hearts
American
flying
Bird
up on
Alert.
Facebook.
You get a lot of
Thank you, guys.
you know discounts to partners that would pay for your membership if you were buying OM System or Zeiss or something right
Optics
off the bat.
or
So
subscriptions
we
and all
try to
kinds of things.
we try to make that ABA membership worthwhile, and of course you're helping Greg and I out too, which we certainly appreciate.
Yeah, keep
Jeff
the lights
Blanchard
on and keep
notes,
the
be sure to
streams
check out
going.
Listers, a funny movie. I'm actually interviewing Owen Reiser of Listers early next week for an ABA podcast episode, so be aware of that. About halfway through the movie, I'm working my way through it. It's
Tell
good.
him to
I
send
enjoyed
you,
it.
tell him to send you a headshot so I don't have to go hunt one up on the internet that he won't like.
I'll try and do that.
Take a screenshot
Yeah.
from the movie.
So the thing about Listers, yeah, I think they do a nice job kind of capturing the absurd parts of the birding culture, but the bird cinematography is next level. Like it is phenomenal for someone that is not considered himself a bird videographer. Like there's some great videos of birds in all sorts of places. He does a fantastic job. Anyway, thanks to everybody. And thanks for all the kind words on the comments. We definitely appreciate that, and we'll be back in a couple weeks to talk birds at you.
We'll see you in 2 weeks, folks.
Adios.
Bye.